everybody. Welcome to another episode of Mystic Elements News and Views. I'm Lorraine, and I'm here with my co-host Maven. Welcome, Maven. We're not together tonight. I am out of town, so we're still able to do this thing and do our live tonight, and so that's a little different. But this is what our guests end up having to do. So.
And we see this, we've seen this all over the country for months now. So
yeah,
Lorraine, we made it on at 8:01.
8:01. Nice. We actually, and people can everybody hear us? Hey Chip, I see you're on, and give us a thumbs up if you can hear us. Make sure that everything is good. Volume is okay.
Look, the first 3 people are men. Because I know this started.
Walter and Jonathan, thank you guys so much.
So nice to see y'all. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So tonight, this is actually our, what is it? 5th episode.
Our 5th episode. It happened just that fast. So
yeah, I can't believe it's already our 5th episode. It's gone by so fast, and it's so much more fun doing this together versus doing it alone. I really enjoy it.
And thank you.
Tonight's topic is about Samhain. We have, today is October 1st. We've got a full moon tonight, and we actually have a full moon coming up on Samhain this year. And so that's really exciting thing. So right now we're in the harvest moon, and then on the night of Samhain is a blue moon.
So it makes it even more special.
Absolutely.
And so really, in 2020, Lorraine, could Samhain have landed on anything other than a blue moon?
I mean, it's with the way 2020 is, it's just.
So buckle up, buttercups. We're expecting it to be an interesting time.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating year. There's been parts of it has been absolutely awful, but then the other part of it is I think, me personally, I feel like I have grown so much because I was forced to really just do a lot of self-reflection, and and I know that's the same for a lot of people, and so I've learned a lot about myself, and so some of it's been great, some of it's not been so great. Growth is not always easy.
It hurts.
Yeah, growing. Those growing pains.
So we have some. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We have some people asking what we're doing tonight. Over this next month, if you don't mind, I'll field that. Over this next month, every Thursday night, there's 5 Thursdays this month, we are going to discuss understanding Samhain, Halloween traditions, and things surrounding that. What stones to use, what products that we recommend, how to truly celebrate and get the best out of it, and to understand this observance. Then at the end, we're all going to be working towards, at the end, for the night before, so the Thursday night right before Samhain, that we're going to do a participatory kind of celebration. And one of the things Lorraine and I discussed, if you don't know, Samhain is also the time we honor the people that were lost during that we lost during the burning times. And we will discuss that, and we will all work together to have a meaningful ceremony via this opportunity, this magical web that we're all sharing. So that's my answer, Kelly. Tonight we're talking about Samhain.
Yes.
And the magic of it. It's probably the favorite season of all of us kind of witchy types.
Hey, Karen. So,
hey, Karen.
Samhain is, we've celebrated Samhain at Mystic Elements for years, but it's not something that I really had enough knowledge about, and so it was just because it's not something that I grew up celebrating, or even it always worked out that I did not get to do a whole lot of participation with it. So it was really good for me to uh, educate myself finally on Samhain, because we do have a lot of people that do celebrate it, and I just Maven had this great idea that we'll go deeper into what is Samhain, and its beginnings, and then how it's evolved. So, oh, sorry, I'm also reading the comments too. It's a little distracting. So,
may I speak to that for a minute?
sure.
So, one of the things about that is, and now watch me lose my train of thought. One of the reasons why we want to explore it deeper, and one of the reasons why it's important in this neighborhood, North Carolina had a huge influx of Irish Scots and folks that came over when this area was settled. And so a lot of those people brought their tribal traditions with them that was passed down. Just like we have Native Americans here, and there were tribal people all over the world, so did Europe and Britain and England, Ireland and all those places. And those traditions came with them, and that's where Samhain comes from. It's a Celtic holiday brought here by our ancestors and shared. The Celts spread all across Europe at one period of time. They were huge. And so this is what they celebrate. And that's why we kind of hearken to it, and it feels familiar, because there is traditions that are surrounding this, not just, as Lorraine and I talked about just before we went on air. This is not just something, not the dark times, but the thinning of the veils, the observant of our ancestors. We see this across all kinds of cultures. Mm-hmm. So we're going to touch on some of that too. Okay. So we want people who are interested in knowing their ancestors to not feel any shame in that. Let's understand what it's about and why they did it, and take away all the fear and things, and make it easier for all of us to understand and relate to each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Samhain, it has a couple of things. It's the end of the harvest, so it's a celebration about that, and then it's also about honoring those that have passed and moved on. And it's that we have the date as November 1st is the first of the year, but it actually, you Maven just explained this one to me, that traditionally it goes more by the phase of the moon, so it's always on a full moon. So incredibly, the full moon happens to be on the 31st. So it's just the timing of this year is just really great.
Astrologically, I'm sorry, Lorraine, to cut you. No, astrologically, we move into the sign of Scorpio on about between November 7th, November 6th and 8th. And that is the sign that signifies that. I misspoke when I shared that it was the moon, because it's a phase, but I said it. So,
okay, I'm sorry.
Before I send this, so a lot of times you're going to generally see people celebrate Samhain on October 31st, and there's nothing wrong with it. The season of Samhain arcs from October 31st all the way till Yule. So you can celebrate all through there, but to benefit from the crux of the thinning of the veils, then you want to come within that time of October 31st and what we call Samhain proper, which is us going into Scorpio. And that is, again, between November 6th and 8th. And that is truly the thinning of the veil.
So explain to people what the thinning of the veil actually means. Because we hear that term so much, thinning of the veil. But, there's a lot of people that don't quite understand what that is.
Right. So, first of all, the thinning of the veils means a time in which the dimensions between those who have passed in the year, the dimensions of our ancestors and the dead, comes very close to the realm of the living. And because those interlap and brush into each other the way they do in this moment, There is a long held belief by our blood ancestors dating back 2,000 plus years or more, because we don't have a written history of that,
Mhm.
that we could communicate and foster communication, interactions with the dead. At that time, though, it was also believed that other spirits, sometimes unfriendly, relatives who weren't happy, could also come back. And that brought a lot of the notions of fear and things like that into it, which the Celts did believe you should protect yourself if going out and about on these days. So,
And that's where the costume, we call it costume now, but before then it was, what's the word? Drawing a blank. Disguising yourself. So going in disguise so that those beings would not be able to recognize who you were. If it was malevolent, is that the right word?
Malevolent.
Malevolent. Thank you.
You were right there. You're going to do it for me lots of times, I promise.
Tomato.
Tomato. Help me out with this word. I can't.
Yes. So they would be able to sit because it was believed too that because there is a thinning of the veil, that anybody that has passed, everybody was able to come if they wanted. So
if they wanted to.
If they chose to. So if there was somebody that was violent with you or they had a grudge against you, there was the belief that at that time they would be able to find you and cause you harm. So that was whenever they would disguise themselves, so they would not be able to be seen.
If they were out and about. Because
if you were outside of your home, out and about.
Because there were protections available. Yes, and so over time that became kind of playful and prankstery. Mm-hmm. And that's really where we got to Halloween, is that became more of, as it moved to the United States. And we'll discuss that more because there's several other holidays that we know of, All Hallows Eve, All Saints Day, and several things that come into this realm. And we're going to cover those, but probably not in great depth tonight. Tonight we're going to, more talk about Samhain and what it meant. Right, Lorraine? Am I on that? We're going to talk about stuff, but we're just not going to go in great detail about that in this.
We want to go into depth with them, with every step, every part of it, because it is such an important time of year, and there's a lot to it.
There is.
Yeah, and it's also. We were saying that the fire what?
Well, it's the most important of all the fire festivals celebrated we have an 8-stroke wheel of celebration that was known by the Celts, and the Samhain is the most important of that fire festival. And so Samhain also marked a time of slowing down, of taking your time to work on things, on crafting, on patience. And it was also the cold time. There were a great amount of blessings. If you didn't get a good harvest in, you had to worry about how you're going to feed your people. You had to make wise choices. There was a lot of, this was a time of wisdom. It was a time with we also follow a cycle of, we have the maiden is in the first part of the year. This is Samhain, and one of the things about the seed is we believe that this is the beginning of the year because the seed was reborn. When we harvested our food, that's all we had till spring came. So they had to make the best of it. And so in the spiritual equivalence of that, we saw that the seed form of the God went back to the belly. And we went into the crone phase, but at the earth rested, representing the mother, holding that seed. It took a long time for that seed to nurture and be reborn again, just like the cycle of our births. Mm-hmm. So Samhain in 1 is a time of contemplation. It's a time of stillness. It's a time of renewal. We have, now harvest the fields, and we have been out, and it's been work for months, and now we slow down. We tend to things that take our time, our thought, plotting their gardens, and even pre-agricultural Europe. They made plans about hunting. If the tribe was going to move, wise things were developed and thought of in time. It was a
And it was also because the daylight was diminishing. So there was not enough, the hours of working was reduced. The weather was turning cold. So, there's no way to harvest. You had to make sure you had your harvest done, by Samhain. And
it's true. And if I just may interject right there, it's important to know that as they went into harvest, they put out the fires at Samhain. Lorraine brought that up to me earlier as we were discussing what we wanted to talk about tonight, and I'm glad you did. And it's very important that as the harvest was taken from the fields, the fire was put out. And then later, as the festival of Samhain rose, they raised energy, they came together, groups come together, they worked that together. And that night, as the fires were rekindled and lit, then the fires in the hearth were relit, thus signifying the beginning of a new year.
And then from what I understand, it was also important that it was a female that started the fires.
Yes.
Just
like we had Bridget in the spring. It was the fire, because it's the belly, it's in the belly.
Okay. So I didn't quite understand the reason for that. I know the divine feminine is very honored, and very much a goddess-led society. So I didn't know if it had anything to do with that, as to why it was important that the women started the fires.
I think it's because of the seed in the belly.
Okay. Because the mother is the woman is the one that gives birth. So it's representative of what the female body is capable of. So it's about a rebirth.
So it's about rebirth and it's about keeping the flame going.
Okay.
You can imagine what despair. I mean, you look at what we faced with 2020 and these things. They literally had to live off what they harvested and what they prepared for. The tallow they'd saved to make candles. The things they wove to wear, the animal pelts they had to cover themselves. Had they thatched their roofs, had they, depending upon where they were in their development as a society, but all these things mattered. And so it was a very spiritually growth induced time. I think that I just can't imagine because they talk about, as we follow the story into Yule, we talk about going into the winter, how much food was left, how much food. And then from Yule, because October 31st to Yule is not that long of a period, it's 6 weeks. Then you have another 6 weeks. That's when it gets really dark and cold, because the coldest part of winter is after December, at least in my understanding of it, in my time. I can't speak to Britain, but I know that that's when it was the coldest. And they're just waiting for the milk of the ewe, the sheep to have milk, and the first green things, just to get through the winter. So there's a lot of knowledge and shared knowledge, and it was also a time of respite. You work really hard. It's a time of kindling those crafts, whittling, making tools, repairing things, sewing.
Another thing that I learned in my research was that in addition to honoring those that have passed, it's also a time of honoring the land spirits.
That's true. Talk about that. I mean, you had a really good handle on that.
Yeah, it was really interesting. So your harvest needed to be harvested by Samhain, and if whatever was left out there, after Samhain, you were not to touch, because that was intended for the land spirits. The fairies, the brownies, I can't remember. I'm trying to blank. The sprites. Any other type of entity. Yeah, there's so many, and not only that, it's really important on the night of Samhain to also do an offering whatever you do, have your dinner and your celebratory dinner, create a plate for them also, and that honors them because and they're the ones that they were there with you too to help your crops to grow. And if you didn't, yeah.
Well, and that's also believed like on all the harvests, even Lunasa back on August 1st, which is more of a grain harvest and light berry harvest. Mm-hmm. They would take that time and leave some of the food in the ground to feed the mother, the all mother who provided, and the animals and different things. It was believed to be in bad form to be greedy, that if you didn't make a sacrifice, then you would be denied to run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the last harvest was, I believe it's the last harvest is more of your root vegetables. Mm-hmm. So your potatoes and
probably apples. Still having apples.
Apples, yeah, apples. Yeah, I read that, and the apples are huge for Samhain. So I didn't realize that. You said that explains when I was a kid, it was all about bobbing for apples, and I didn't realize that was part of that too.
Well, the bobbing for apples represented the apple. Okay, so water represents the veils. So if you practice any of this and you study or work with the elements, water is emotion, and water is when you call to the west, you're calling to water, the water of the burst that brought you, and the waters that will take you away in your day. So when you bob for apples on the surface of water, it was like breaking through the membrane between the veils. It was thought to have the ability to bring visions and different things. It was just symbolic of passing through that membrane. Mm-hmm. And apples had such a significant role. Avalon in itself is a name that meant apple. Right. The Isle of Apples is what England really is known as. That there's a lot of apples there. It's how they made their cider. It's how, it's very similar to maple trees here, that in a lot of ways we get a lot of things from. I mean, apples had just so many functions. And even when you cut an apple in it and it has the sacred star, that was also thought to be a sacred plant of the goddess or the gods. Yeah, so where are we at? On our little paper. We have papers. And Lorraine, I can't text to these people, so you need to write them and ask them, so how do you celebrate Samhain? I'm not used to me not being able to run in the Bee Live, so I can't write down that.
I can actually type that in on the caller, I think.
And so really, guys, we want to know what excites you about Samhain. What would you like to know? What would you like to know how to improve on? What questions are important to you?
There. How about that?
Hey, Tina King. So, Samhain is a great time to get together and celebrate your ancestors. And one of the things we want to teach you in one of the episodes coming up, we're going to talk about your ancestors. And ancestor altars are known across traditions. I mean, all kinds of traditions celebrate their ancestors.
It's not just Celtic.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So no matter what you are, you can participate in this tradition within Samhain and have a part in it. And that is making an ancestor altar. So a lot of people's Samhain altars are covered in pictures of those who have gone before you. Like if we were doing a public altar at Mystic Elements, like we've done that in the past outside for Samhain, and everybody would be welcome to bring pictures or tokens of the people they've loved to add to that altar. So when we go into those veils and make ceremonial spirituality happen, that we acknowledge them and they feel our love across the veils and feel like they can speak to us. And so we're going to cover that. Like, what would you put on there? What kind of foods would you put on? What kind of things would you use? What tools would you use to accentuate the thinning of those veils? There's lots of wonderful tools to do that. Herbs, stones, incenses, which I guess can be herbs, but
Yeah, herbs and incenses go together. So,
And so we also want to, I think, tonight talk about the colors of sound, just to help you get prepared. So, so Lorraine, you had some thoughts on this. What did you discover as you were preparing for the show?
the red and the red and black, and those two, I believe, is because they're the most grounding colors. They're the most protective. Black is the most protective color, and so during Samhain, because the veil is at its thinnest, you also need protection from those that may come across and want to cause harm or
Or be mischievous.
yeah, because thank you. Yeah, not necessarily cause harm, because I believe there's a way to protect yourself from that. But some people are more susceptible than others.
There are spiteful spirits.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There are spiteful people. So there are other colors that go along with Samhain, though. Also, so like when you build an altar, you usually cover it in dark colors. You want things like purples are also Samhain colors, rust colors like the mums and like the colors you see in the trees because the leaves are changing. Those are also
all of the oranges, browns, and yellows.
And gold.
My favorite colors.
Yeah, and then also people turn to white and silver because in its starkness, in the most cold of climes in Europe and in Northern America, they can see cold times by then. The leaves can be off the trees. We can see silvers and whites and starkness out there.
Okay.
Hey, Lorraine, here's some comments.
Yeah, I see that. That's not cool. Don't do that.
No,
I'll take care of that. Not cool.
We do have someone that loves spamming us, don't we?
Yeah.
I would help you, but I don't know how.
I got it.
Okay. So also, Samhain is a time that it's a real introspective moment. It's time to assess. Like when we came into the spring of this year, we all were going through a lot. We were having to figure out, were we going to plant gardens? Were we going to have food? What's going to happen? Those fears that arose in us are very similar to what our ancestors kind of experienced, but they were wise people. So like I would like to tell you about the conical witch's hat you see all the time. So
okay, I just banned that user. I am so sorry about that. It looks like they ended up commenting on several people's comments. So that user is now banned. So sorry about that.
So
that's something we unfortunately have to stay on top of.
We do. So just so you know that the witch's hat in the Slavic regions of Europe, it was believed those hats, those conical hats you witness, they would get taller and taller based on wisdom. It was something that reflected the wiseness of the woman wearing it. It was often quite often men went off to hunt and women took care of the things. There was a wise woman who would look over the village and chieftains. We know that there was a matriarchal society. It wasn't just patriarchal. And so those hats are known to have reflected that, so that the taller the hat, the wiser the hat. So, and witch, just so we can understand that the word witch comes from a root word witta, which meant wise one. It didn't mean anything else. It just meant a wise person who knew her herbs and her craft. She was generally the person that went out and cared for the village. She taught this craft to people. They were like the doctors and the healers of their villages. So let me tell you where the Green Witch came from, because we're there. Can I do that, Lorraine? The Green Witch is a portrayal of when the Inquisition, which we're going to cover that too, the burning times, and what that's about. But just so, I've never been very fond of the green-faced witch that you see. I had a friend that had shared it and explained it to me in such a way that it has taken root. And if you can imagine that you cared for your village, you delivered their babies, you got up in the middle of the night and brought them healing tinctures, you knew just from this year how hard it is to keep a garden going. You kept herbs going so that you could heal people and care for them. And then one night out of the middle of nowhere, you're picked up and dragged off and considered an evil thing. And you're tortured. And you are questioned and terrible things happen to you in these moments. And by the end of the morning, before they drug you to the gallows, among all those people you felt spitting on you, throwing things at you, to hang you or burn you, you would turn green too. That's where it came from. The color of this, the women and men who were, and there were a variety of people that were burned or things happened during the Inquisition. And that's where that green face comes from. So
Okay.
when you think of it as a funny thing, its origins are really rooted in a very serious, sorrowful time.
Yeah, absolutely. I never even knew that. So thank you.
Yeah, that's
The green witch you think of the most is from the Wizard of Oz. That's what when I think green witch, that instantly comes to mind.
What does it? What comes to mind?
The Wizard of Oz.
Oh yeah, that's true. Well,
Yeah,
she was green.
That's when I think of green witch. That's what I think of, or I think of plant medicine.
Well, I think that sometimes too that there were illnesses or lack of foods, and sometimes I think that culturally speaking, if you guys want to get into this kind of in a deeper way, if you can imagine, as we get older, we women and men who age retreat from community because we have less energy for it. That's why there were hags and people off in private areas. Lots of people as they get older like to be to themselves. And so not always did they have the best food and the best things, and as they aged, I just think that it was malnutrition and things sometimes that we saw in these women. And quite honestly, as a society, we have strayed away from finding the beauty and joy in a beautifully aged woman, that there's such wisdom. The lines in our faces mark the history of this life of having kids and all of our struggles, and we have long since found the beauty in that. And that's one of the things I love about earth-based spirituality, is that we honor the time of the crone as a celebratory time. We have reached the age of all knowing. I don't mean like everything. I mean what you know more about yourself as you age.
Yes.
Something beautiful about becoming a crone.
And I'm 51 now, and there's no way I would ever go backwards.
I love it.
I would never want to be 25 again. I would kind of nice to have the body of the 25, but it just
be nice to have the joints of a 25-year-old.
The joint, the strength, the energy, all that kind of stuff.
And so when you practice this faith, or you come into where you're following the week, what you begin to learn is like, I'm now on that crone side. And I remember what it was to be a maiden, to be a mother, how the lessons grow and change. And so there's a beauty to going through the cycle every year. Every year it deepens. The knowledge is significant. Mm-hmm. It's an important thing. And so that's how I feel about the change of the wheel. It's like, for me, it's this great clockwork of time and understanding as the world turns around us that I follow. It's the tides coming in. It's the turn of the moon. It's just this beautiful thing that I'm part of. And I'm made of the same thing that the stars are. We're all stardust, so if you allow yourself to sink into it and feel it and get into that rhythm, it brings such peacefulness to your life. At least it does for me.
Yeah, I agree. We made it all the way through our list.
We did, but we were going to talk about things that we have at Mystic Elements, like books if people would like to. There's some really good books about Samhain and good series of It's so funny that books
several on Wheel of the Year. We do have one book that's specifically about Samhain. It's actually a series of books, and it breaks up all eight of the Wheel of the Years into individual books. But
and it does.
Wheel of the Year.
When in 1998, this is a product by Llewellyn, right? In 1998, these were all shoved in one little paperback. It was about this big, and it was about that thick, and it went through the phases. Now it's grown so much that it has the
interest is finally enough where they can have more books written about it. It's become a lot more acceptable. It's just really great that people can be more open about it. Hey, Kathy. Do you know Kathy?
Hi, Kathy. Hi, Kathy. And then I see Mary's here.
Mary.
Oh, you made it, Kathy. I'm so proud of you. I remember some people are like, I almost always try to get there and I can't. So some of the other things is that preparing an altar sometimes, it's nice to have a designated cloth that's special to you. And right now, Mystic Elements, I think you've probably seen these in the Mystic Misfits videos a few times if you've caught those. We have some wonderful altar cloths that have pentacles on them that are very lovely, black and white, that are perfect if you're looking for the right piece of fabric, or you can also use fabric you have at home, but we do have altar cloths available.
Yeah, and those are not online. Hopefully I can get them online
before Samhain.
Before Samhain, yeah, it'd be nice to do that. And like a short enough time to do any shipping. I definitely need to get that project done.
Okay.
Other stuff.
So also, since it is a full moon tonight, we do have full moon candles, Mystic Elements. I know that we're closed now, so you getting one today isn't happening. But for Samhain, there's a variety of candles available. I like to use a silver candle itself, and I like to use a black candle itself. And white is always nice too to honor the crone. So there's a variety of intentional candles made by Coventry and different varieties. Lorraine, you have something you want to add to that?
Yeah, we have the full moon candle by Coventry. And what else?
Well, we have several new candles we just got in. We have a beautiful witch. We have some in the store that are so amazing.
Yeah, the figure candles.
The figure candles.
I'm gonna get those online too. We've got some really cool figure candles. We have
some very neat ones.
A witch. We have
a wizard.
A wizard. Skull.
Oh yes, they're cute skull ones.
Yes, a skull that is the skull candle that is actually loadable. The lid comes off a little bit, and then you can put something in there. Like whatever it is you want to put in there.
It's really nice. So, and then also there are other candles that will suit you, intentional candles of a whole variety.
Yeah.
And girl, I'm a cast iron kind of girl. My cauldron outside is 200 years old and used to make soap, and it comes from Kaufman, Texas, and used to sit out in the field and marry dirty neighbors. And those boys passed their great-great-grandmother's cauldron on to me. I'm not certain how that went over, but I have it. So I have a wide variety of cauldrons. So I love them, and I like small cauldrons for the use in the house on my altar. And Mystic Elements just had some really new oval cauldrons come in that are
just got them in this week. They are adorable. They're these little tiny things. They look like little bathtubs, miniature bathtubs.
The cauldrons have a big partisan. So if you don't happen to have a cauldron and you're wanting to add one thing this year, cauldrons are really nice. Mm-hmm. So is a good broom. Like a lot of times you see brooms in the spring, but the fall is a good time to make a new broom for yourself at the beginning of the year, because the broom grasses are growing. There's lots of fallen branches. This is really a good time to pick your broom and consider that.
So speaking of brooms, what's What's the purpose of the broom besides sweeping?
It's an energy mover. It is believed when I come into this in my day, there was a whole lot more that went into creating a circle. And what was believed, like it was believed that you used the broom to cleanse the space. You swept in the circle, and then when you were done, you could sweep out if you want. So it was believed that it cleansed the space, but they also believed every year you had a new broom, energetically and magically, not necessarily about flying. There's a whole other story about that and flying ointment and things we could go into, but I'm not certain this is a family show, but tonight's not the night for that. But the sweeping, so let me share why. I used to run the Pagan Community Center in downtown Dallas back in the late 90s during Satanic Panic. There was lots of drama surrounding it. And when it come time for us to move, we took our broom that was dedicated to that building, and as we left, we painted the walls to cover over our symbols, and we swept our way out the door. But all of our energy went with us and was not left to be misconstrued or used against us or in a poor way, but that broom finished up our business just as we swept our way in the temple. So there is a belief that it cleanses the space in an intentional way. It's just like using a wooden spoon. I have wooden spoons that I always stir a certain direction when I'm making a certain soup and things, especially for Sabbaths and rituals, because I'm stirring in energy, just like my broom.
Okay. Interesting.
Is that too much? Did I give you too much?
No, that was great.
I
That was something I was not knowledgeable about.
I would think in my own brooms too. There's something about it's the time to do it. It's a wonderful craft too. There's something to be said about making something unique yourself.
So you can get like this time of year especially, you can get the cinnamon brooms.
Mm-hmm.
Does that have any symbology, or is it just something that makes your space smell good?
I think it does have symbology. We always got them, like, I'm spent a lot of years in Texas. I'm sure y'all know that. And cinnamon brooms were a big part. I mean, I bought a cinnamon broom the other day, a little one, and brought it in and put it with my things on my table and let's stick on the red cards. I just think it's the cinnamon oil on the broom, and it's that. It's not the broom itself so much. Truly, a broom should be able to actually sweep, if you make it smell. But we always use them because there's such a thin line between what we brought from our ancestors from Europe and what is being celebrated by the indigenous people of Southern Texas, which were Hispanic cultures and natives.
When there's also a lot of herbs that are specifically for this time of year, and we'll go more into that in another episode. But I do remember cinnamon was one of them. I can't remember what purpose. I don't know if it was protection or calling in our better connection with our ancestors, because there's like 3 different.
It helps us connect with ancestors.
Okay, that's the one. Okay, yeah, because there was a third one, but I can't remember it. I didn't take notes.
So it's funny when cinnamon's also used by the cultures of Mexico, or the Hispanic population there, tribal people. In hot baths for birthing, it's supposed to help relieve, and in the water and all that birthing process and the veils and stuff to bring the soul into the world, and it also eases birth pains. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of ways these things all tie together too. So I'm glad we're going to be talking about the herbs and covering.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot.
There's mugwort.
Yeah.
And cedar.
Holy basil was one of them. So definitely we'll do one of our other episodes. I'm not sure which one, because we need to plan this out a little bit more. But we're definitely going to cover herbs, stones,
and animals too. Like right now, one of the things we want to talk about is, as you prepare, There are some animals that we're very familiar with, like the cat, the black cat, ravens at this time. So
Crows
as
and
you said,
ravens are huge
crows.
because
So
of
as you're
Morgana. From what I understand, Morgana is a big part of
the
sound.
more she is, and she comes with her death ravens.
Yes.
So that is true. Or crows in the battlefield. But all those corvids are, known to kind of be between life and death. So.
Yeah, and then it also will share about the feast. What's recommended. I know 9 is the number. Like 9 dishes or a dish made with 9 ingredients, and the number 9 is about ending. So
it is, and so we are also going to talk about the dumb supper. We're going to talk about a variety of ways that you might incorporate into your own practices at Halloween. Even if this is all new to you, there's lots of things you can learn, and we want to bring that to you. That's why it's going to take us 4 episodes, and the 5th episode, even though that on the ads like we put out today, it said a 4-part series. The 5th part of that will be an actual celebration or a experience. So. Lorraine, it's 8:48.
Yeah.
So we haven't done bad. Anything else you want to cover?
I'm trying to think. I think we covered everything for tonight. Yeah, there's a lot of other things that we want to save that because we want to go into more depth, and we only got 10 minutes left. So, yeah, I think that's good for tonight.
If
we need to talk about your water.
I make a product called Lucky Water that Lorraine has in her store.
Yes. And we were supposed to get this online, and
it's okay. You know where it's at. It's at Mystic Elements. But you can also.
We just need somebody to take a photograph, and then we'll get it put online.
That's right.
Maybe I'll have Max just take a quick picture, or you can take a picture. And
well, I want those misfits to do something really stylized with it. I like when it's flying through the store on a unicorn or something. It's got to be that. So,
yeah.
Okay. You can also find me at Mystic Elements, where I read cards and provide spiritual counseling several days a week. Just in case you didn't know that.
Monday, Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday.
And you can also get me on Zoom on Wednesdays if I'm not at the store.
You do Zoom and phone calls.
That's right, Zoom and phone calls. But
although Zoom's more fun because you get to for me, I think Zoom would be better than a phone call.
People love phone calls. I do lots of phone calls.
Yeah.
Phone calls, man.
Yeah, for me, it's a personal thing, I guess.
Well, Zoom is fun. I lower the screen so they can see the cards, and I put them up so I talk to them. We have a lot of fun.
Yeah, what you need is get 2 cameras. I'll show you how to do it.
I always take pictures of the readings too, and then text them to them so they can see the pictures. So. Okay. If you're interested, because this is the month to be talking to your ancestors and stuff, this is usually a very busy month for divination.
So. Yes. So definitely we start thinking about what you want to honor this month. Who you want to honor. Your loved ones that have passed. Pets that have passed, if you had a familiar that has passed, this is also the time to start working towards communication with them too, and honoring them, especially during your celebration night. We're also going to be talking about what's called a dumb supper. Read that name. I don't know why it's called a dumb supper.
Well, we'll get into that next time.
Yeah, we'll
so it also, we're going to be talking about the burning times, what the Inquisition was, and what that meant, and how that's impactful this season, and why it's remembered now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Jonathan mentions mugwort tea. Yes, that's another way to
definitely
to connect. You do need to be very careful with mugwort. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to do too much. You want to make sure it's something that's organic. Because of the pesticides with any type of tea. So just
It's also good to burn mugwort too.
Yeah, you can burn it too.
Mhm.
Yeah, a lot of herbs, you can either burn it or drink it as a tea, but then there's some herbs out there you don't want to do either. That you've got to be careful with certain ones just because they've got great protective energies about them, but they can also cause harm if they're touched in the skin or ingested. So be careful with that.
Hey, Jess King, I see your face down there. So, this in my world, this is normally a time we make stone soup. And it's where people are hungry and they bring together what they have to make stone soup and share with their village and a lesson of community. And
So what is stone soup?
Stone soup is, it's a legend that comes from Russia. It tells the story of a man who comes into a village. He was hungry and everybody's like, oh, I only have carrots. Oh, I only have celery. And he said, well, you know what? I have this magic rock. And if someone would get a pot, well, I'd put this magic rock in here and we could all eat. I'd have soup. And someone, well, I have some onion. And this proceeds through the village. And everyone brings their items where the stone is. And they all add it to the stone soup. And the whole village ate, where all of them only had little bits of things. It's a lesson in cooperation. It's a lesson in community. I did it in Texas for multitudes of years, and I happened to pass stone soup on to Jazz. It's traditionally a vegetarian thing, but I think it has meat in it now. But it is truly on a dark night. I used to have folks bring their vegetables, and each person would walk up and have a private moment to me and record their name and why they brought that vegetable, and then they would come and stir it in, and I would ask them, so what will you add? What do you bring to community this year? And it was one of those moments that kind of always caught you in your feels, and you kind of felt that as you left, and it stayed with you. And when I left, one of the hardest things for me to do was to not make the soup anymore. And so I took the rock that had been in the soup for a very long time on my end, and I passed that along to Jess. And so she now makes the soup for me. If you remember, Lorraine, the first time I was at Mystic's first Samhain Halloween event, I made stone soup.
Yeah, I don't believe I got a chance to partake in it, but I do remember because I had to leave early that day. I had recently had surgery.
That's true. You had.
Yeah, my arm was in a sling. I was high on painkillers. So I think I was.
There was a lot of soup. Made a lot.
Yes.
But we've had this before where I've done it at festivals with 500 to 1,000 people, and everyone comes, and as we have ritual and ceremony, we're all eating the soup, and it gets spread throughout the village. So the soup is cooked, it's made in circle, it's made in the right time and place, and then it's disseminated across your campsites where people continue to eat and keep it in their coolers and stuff, and it feeds the village. And the significance of that tied to what Samhain is, to what we're tribal people trying to remember that experience. So it's just a beautiful
Coney says, stone soup parties are my favorite. We had one last weekend and wound up with chicken and dumplings. That sounds delicious.
Doesn't that sound wonderful?
And then Teresa said a children's book about stone soup.
Well, stone soup comes from a myth of a Russian story, a Slavic story of people coming. That's where the story comes from. So it is in a children's book.
Okay.
But we've written all kinds of stories about it and done ceremonies on it, and the lessons that it gives. What it teaches is resilience, but not just resilience, but that we're better together than we are apart.
Individual, yeah.
And it takes a village. It takes a village to harvest a field. It takes a village, working together. It's great to be individualists and live on our own. But just like through this pandemic experience we've had, we've all come to learn the significance of those who hold close to us. Mm-hmm. So it's important. So that's my little thing on it. Made a lot of stone soup in my day, so.
Yeah. Well, I believe that's all we've got for everybody tonight. We really appreciate everybody joining us, and you know, we hope that you learned more about Samhain, and we look forward to these next few weeks, the rest of this month. Every week, we're going to be educating about Samhain even more, and it's been really fun for me to do the research, and so I can educate myself, you know, just for my own personal knowledge. It's been really nice.
We have had a lot of fun.
And,
So,
and I learned something that Maven didn't know about.
did.
So
we did.
that's exciting.
And I've been at this a long darn time, people. So,
Yeah.
so we would really appreciate if you haven't went over and liked Mystic Elements YouTube channel. We would like to be able to do these lives there, but we need 1,000 people.
Yes.
So, and Lorraine,
we have like 105, I think, subscribers. So we're pretty far off from that. So
were we going to give away something tonight?
Yes, we were. How were we going to do this, though?
I don't know. Maybe we'll think about that next
And
here we go.
Yeah. Why is it?
What happened?
Are we still live?
I don't know. I think we're live. Can you hear us?
I didn't touch anything. I swear. It just like started doing a countdown.
Well, there you are. All right, everybody. I think that's it. So we got to get out of here.
Yeah. Well, we're 57 minutes, so I think we're okay. Maybe it cuts us off at 60 minutes.
So stop by and see us at Mystic Elements, and the Mystic Misfits will be live to you Monday night at 7:30 Eastern time. So don't miss them. They've been fun as ever.
A lot of fun. They have a blast.
They do.
They do.
All right, guys. I'm gonna let Lorraine take us out.
Okay. And, you know, thanks again, everybody, for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. And blessed harvest.
Blessed for me.